Hey everyone, welcome. It's Baron, and I just wanted to give you an update on how my Minion army Lich has been going here in Path of Exile 2, the 3rd Edict, patch 0.3. So I actually started recording this video for just a minute just now and realized that my mic wasn't going, so the map showcase that I was going to do for you is already a few seconds underway. I've just killed a few enemies, no big deal. I just wanted to dive into a map showcase first and kind of talk through some of the general aspects of the build before we kind of dive into the specifics at the end. For anybody who doesn't know, it's a Minion army Lich. There's a good mix of offense and defense on the build. Fairly tanky, around 8,000 energy shield, a couple thousand life. I did roll this map with only 5 instead of 6 modifiers so that I could get that just in case revive. Number one, because I prefer it. I'd rather give up a little bit of quantity on my items to get that chance of a revive. And number two, because we are running the Copper Citadel for the map showcase. So you've got that mini boss thing going on, and let's dive back in with that. So the map has just gotten started, as you can tell from the mini map here, and you may notice that you will not hear any sound effects for this showcase. It is because I do have the sound effects turned off. You can hopefully hear that the vocal audio is there and a little bit of the music, but the sound effects, the reason I've got those turned off is because the specters I've chosen are these nettle ants, and in the current state of the game, when you use the nettle ant spectre, they always come with that blue and white ice ability that pops up, you see all the time, and all of them do the ability all at the same time every few seconds. It's just over and over again. It can get a little irritating on the audio, that one specific effect over and over and over. Not too big a deal. You can always choose a different spectre. These are kind of agreed upon to be the best spectre at the moment, but there are plenty of good options you could run for this build. But the nettle ants just have really good attack speed and AI, or whatever you want to call their monster behavior. They're very aggressive. They seek out enemies, which is really good. Now you can see, theoretically, I could just take my hands off and not do much other than wander around. This is actually a pretty bad map layout for this build. I'm kind of operating at a handicap, so whatever you think of the build, having seen this, kind of up your estimate of it by a few percent, because the build does not do great, or doesn't do as well, in map layouts that have these tiny little corridors. Path of Exile 2, unlike 1, does not have phasing, the ability to put an item on your character that lets you walk through enemies. So you kind of have to let the specters go ahead, do their thing, and then you back off, and it's a little clunky in the little hallways. The build operates much better in open layouts. But with that said, you can see I'm doing fine. I don't have to really be doing anything other than lead my specters and other minions to the guy, to the enemies, and then back off. But what I am actually doing is I'm casting Unearth for a couple reasons, and I'm casting Despair as a spell. Those are the things that I cast pretty frequently. One of the reasons, honestly, it's a nervous tick. I don't do well playing builds where I have no buttons to press. I like to press at least one, maybe 2 buttons. Now, as you'll see, against a big target, there's a couple other things that I can press. So I'll hit him with the curse. I'll do my war cry for my minions. I'll do my pain offering. Hit him with a bunch of the Unearth. And actually, this boss is pretty tanky. Like, as bosses go, in this game, this guy's kind of a bullet sponge. I'm used to seeing health bars spike down a lot faster. That's what I get for running a Citadel for my showcase. So, throw the curse on him, throw the war cry from my Reavers? No, Brutes, I think. And then the pain offering. We'll go through what supports are on all these. Now, Unearth, I'm casting. I've got it on my right click for a few reasons, like I said. One is that I've got some nodes on my tree that give my minions more damage if I have hit recently. So Unearth counts as me hitting the enemy. And then the other reason is that it creates these little minions that I can sacrifice for pain offering. I also sacrifice my skeletal warriors from my scepter for pain offering. But yeah, it's helpful to have a few different minions. So as you can see, for a Citadel, that went really, really well. That went really smoothly. especially considering this build doesn't have a ton of investment into it. This is maybe like, I don't know, a 10 div build. Hard to say. Ooh, and I got 2 crisis fragments off of that. That's very good. Always love to see that. Oh, I did mean to clean up my loot filter before this showcase. Sorry about that.
This is not over. Not yet.
I do want to do a quick price check on how crisis fragments are looking right now. But yeah, she said this is not over, but at the same time, it is in fact over. So let's go back to town and talk through some stuff. That was actually a pretty quick map showcase. There was not too many monsters to kill along the way. The video's only been going for a little over 5 minutes. So let me take these guys off. That was just so I could hear the map. And before I go and sell my stuff and do my post-map things, let's talk about the build. So, Lich, right? Lich is a great choice for Minion army because you get this node right here. This is the offensive centerpiece of a Minion build on the Lich, Necromantic Conduit. When you're not on low mana, which you just arrange the build so that you're not, you and allies in your presence have Unholy Might. You lose 5% of maximum mana per second. So there are ways of making sure that you don't lose mana from that downside, but Unholy Might is just 30% of all damage as extra chaos. So whether you're doing physical, fire, cold, a combination, you take whatever the total damage number is and you multiply it by 1.3 and you get that extra bit as chaos. Now that is actually why I'm using Despair instead of other curses. I've got that node and I've got this right here. Minions gain physical as chaos. So between all the different types of minions and all the different types of base damage they do, it winds up being that chaos damage is the bulk of the damage, and it makes sense to use Despair as a curse, which lowers enemies' chaos resistance. So, pardon? That is the offensive centerpiece of the build. Now, there was a brief period of time, I took this as my first Ascendancy, and between first and second Ascendancy, you've got this little awkward period where you've got to manage your mana, because the second Ascendancy, Soulless Form, we'll talk more about it in a second, but this basically solves the mana issue. So from like Act 2.5 to 3.5 or whatever, I just had to take a few extra nodes on the tree that gave me mana regen. It was no big deal. Occasionally you have to hit a mana flask again for like an act or so during the campaign. Really not a big deal to have to do that, and that just overcomes the downside and you get a bunch of extra damage. Second lab, like I said, took Soulless Form. It takes away your inherent mana regeneration, but it gives you regenerate mana based on your life instead. And this comes with a couple of upsides, right? So number one, you don't have to scale your maximum mana to get a better mana regeneration rate. Mana regeneration rate is normally based on a percent of whatever your maximum mana is. This way, you don't have to care about the mana, you just have to care about scaling the life. And also, that 6% is higher than, I think it's 4 or 5% of your mana that you would get under normal circumstances. So anyways, that part is good, but more to the point, this also gives you 10% of damage taken bypasses Energy Shield. Now, most of you know, you take this with the intent of ultimately going in as your third Ascendancy, taking Eternal Life. Your life cannot change while you have Energy Shield. This basically transforms this effect, 10% bypasses Energy Shield, into deleting the damage, right? It attempts to bypass the Energy Shield, your life can't change, so it just deletes that 10% of damage instead. We also add that to potentially a helmet, if you want to use the Ed Series helmet, and also, I'll just search for it, it's around here somewhere. This guy right here, another 5% bypasses Energy Shield. So this says, you know, delete another 5% of Energy Shield, or of damage right there. With that said, some people would tend to think of this as a downside until you get that Eternal Life, and I'd actually argue that that's not the case. And if you played Path of Exile 1, you're probably familiar with this principle, but anytime that you can split damage among different health pools, as long as you can get recovery for those different health pools, it actually winds up being a good thing that you're splitting the damage up. Because, like, if you've got life regen, or even a flask, really, or leech, or whatever you have, plus Energy Shield recharge, normally only one of those things can be active at once. Normally only your Energy Shield recharge matters, but this way you can be hitting a life flask and have it actually benefit your recovery. You can have life regen and it's actually active at the same time as your Energy Shield recharge. So, you know, there are some extreme cases where you fully split the damage between 2 or more resources like life, energy, shield, mana. In this case, it's just a little bit of it, but I just don't want you to think that this is necessarily a pure downside when you take this. Now, for the 4th Ascendancy, it was a toss-up. I said that in my introductory video before I even started the build. Wasn't sure what to take with my 4th. I figured I'd experiment around with it a little bit. One option, of course, was Blackened Heart, increased magnitude of Unholy Might, so more damage as extra chaos per mana. And the drawback, of course, is that I just got finished telling you how Soulless Form has the advantage of meaning that you don't need to scale mana, and then if you take this, you suddenly do have to scale mana. After all, it kind of like competes priority-wise. So like, it's not bad per se, but you do have to put that extra thing on your radar, another stat that you have to scale. So I wasn't too keen on that, especially because, you know, what do I have? I have 800, almost 900 mana here, 4% per 100, so it's only 4 times 9-ish. You get like 36% increased effect, so it's 1.36 times 1.3. It doesn't wind up being an enormous boost, and then if you want to get it better than that, you scale them on it. So I was like, okay, maybe, but let's see what else we can do. The other option was Rupture the Soul, which is, as I've said before, just the whatchamacallit, the explosion node from Occultist in Path of Exile 1, Profane Bloom. It's worded the same, but because cursing works a little different in Path of Exile 2, I was a little hesitant about this one too. And yeah, I took this. I experimented with this as the first iteration of my final Ascendancy point. I experimented with this being my 4th Ascendancy, where basically you have to either walk around manually clicking Despair, which you can see I was doing anyways, but you can't just ever rest on your laurels and rely on enemies being cursed by default the way you could in Path of Exile 1. It's much easier to arrange for enemies to just be cursed somehow. So you have to be a little more proactive, or you have to use a blasphemy setup to automatically curse enemies around you. That comes with a few drawbacks. Number one, Blasphemy still has an activation delay. All curses in Path of Exile 2 have an activation delay unless you find a way of eliminating it. So you still have to have the enemy in your presence for a couple seconds, and the radius is limited, so it's not going to chain explosions out multiple screens away. You have to think about scaling your area of effect if you want to, make enemies further away get cursed. And it is a huge spirit reservation. Like, you're going to take away at least one, and probably more, of your specters if you want to reserve this as blasphemy. So I tried it, and it was okay, but what I found was that you could get reasonable enough explosions by just having impact shockwave. For clear, this is good enough. It causes an aftershock when they heavy stun an enemy, doing the same damage to enemies within 1.5 meters. So yes, this does have an impact on single targets. Aftershocks can affect the single target, but it's not like a huge damage boost. So this is mostly for mapping. And then, oops, sorry about that, meant to hit I. I have heavy swing on standby that I just swap in. Should have swapped that in for the Jamin Rob boss, shouldn't I have? I was working at a handicap there, I guess. I had my mapping set up when you saw me fight the boss there. But the explosions from this, the little shockwaves outwards, are good enough that I was like, all right, I don't need Rupture the Soul. So instead, I took the... is it not going to let me see the name of the... Crystalline Phylactery. There it goes. I have to hover on a very specific spot on the Ascendancy point because it provides a jewel socket. So what you can think of this as is, it's like a jewel socket on the tree, which of course, if I want to go and get another one of these, I have to, in this case, I would have to path 2 points out of my way. In this case, I would have to path 1, 2, 3, 4 points out of my way, etc. And importantly, Crystalline Phylactery, good lord, it gives you double the effect of whatever jewel you place into it. So think of it like, you can think of it this way, it is giving you enough passive points to go and take 2 jewel sockets on the tree. So like the nearest 2 that I could take from where I am right now are 6 away, but here 6 total points away. But here's the thing, probably by the time this build is level 100, I'll have taken these 2 points right here, right? Like, I'll just have used 2 real skill points to get those, which means the nearest 2 jewel sockets in that case are 4 away here, and goodness, where is even the closest one after that? I'm not Sure. A ways. Um, yeah, actually, where is the closest one? I guess here? Like a long ways away is what I'm trying to say. So because it counts as two jewel sockets, you can think of this as counting for a bunch of passive points compared to something like the Pathfinder, who has a whole Ascendancy node to give you 5 passive points. If you are going to take jewels anyways, and this build should take as many jewels as it can, then this is a great value for money. Money, so to speak, great value for Ascendancy point. So I've put something in here that's pretty good. Maximum energy shield, start of energy shield recharge, critical damage bonus. I could have done without that for the minions. I would have rather probably had attack speed because I'm not really scaling minion crit chance in any significant way. But minions have elemental resistance is a great quality of life feature. You don't spend as much time with the minions trying to resummon. So that's the Ascendancy. You know, what's nice about this is it can scale with your investment. This is a pretty cheap jewel that I got. You go higher and higher and higher. But yeah, let's talk. Let's see. Should we do skill gems first or gear first? I think skill gems probably. Skeletal Warriors is in fact coming from a gear piece, coming from a Rattling Scepter. These first 2 skeletons that you get from the Rattling Scepter are free. They are good for a variety of reasons. I use them to inflict Wither for increased chaos damage taken. I use them Sacrificial Lamb so that when I cast Pain Offering, it will prioritize Skeletal Warriors if they are alive. Last Gasp to make sure that they are alive when I need to sacrifice them for Pain Offering. And Meat Shield for the same reason. Like, I just want them available so that when I hit that Pain Offering, I have a very low chance of hitting any of my other minions. The Spectre is the main focus right now of the build. I started off by saying I'll try a full minion army setup, just like one of everything. I'll try specific minions, specific specters. These have been really good. The Vol Guards were also very good. A lot of visual clutter with those, but they were good. And this has just been what I've settled on for the moment. I think there's a lot of things that you could do with the specters. I'm actually kind of excited to see what comes out of the new, just a patch yesterday they put out that they've unlocked the Act 4 monsters. They've unlocked a bunch of those that can now be spectered. So I'm sure that we're going to experiment as a community and see if any of those are good as player specters. But I've got them qualityed up. It's currently only a level 19 gem because you need to be level 90 to use a level 20 gem. I'm not level 90 yet. That bar you can see along the bottom there, once that hits full, then I will be at level 90 and I can use a level 20 gem. And as you can see, even without a level 20 gem, was doing just fine in a tier 15 map Citadel. No issues at all. What supports am I using? Feeding Frenzy is often put in as the main damage support into a minion skill. It's a trade-off because they're taking some more damage, but I've got my skeletal clerics that we'll cover in a minute, so that's fine. Muster, this was like the main reason that I decided to do this build in the first place. I said to myself, even if I decide to focus on specific minions, I will have a bunch of little ancillary support minions around them to make use of Muster. So it says 7% more damage for each different type of reviving minion you have summoned. In the current iteration of the build, how many is that? Skeletal Warrior is 1, Spectre is 2, Brute is 3, Cleric is 4, Storm Mage is 5. So 5 times 7, 35% more damage. That is already better than most support gems that you're going to get out there, at least not without a drawback. And you could, if you made this a more, distributed minion army build, you could make that go even higher, 40, 45, even 50% more damage on all minions. And remember, we can use all supports on all minions now, if we want, on all skill gems. Next up is Heft, more maximum physical hit damage. This will get, of course, converted or counted as also extra chaos damage due to our Ascendancy. Rapid attacks, this is both damage and quality of life. Like, it just means that the sooner they get to the pack, the sooner the pack is dead. And like I said, I've got Impact Shockwave for the explosions, which I can, if I'm thinking about it, sub in for Heavy Swing for even more physical damage. You could argue that Heavy Swing could go in place of Heft. What that would do in effect is it would increase the what's the word I'm looking for? The consistency. It would increase the consistency because Heft increases only the maximum physical damage. It widens the range of damaging hits that your Spectres can deal. So by taking that away and giving 35% more damage overall, you increase the consistency, but since it has the drawback of less attack speed, that is a multiplier on increased attack speed. So that's a hefty loss. You can't make up that easily, but you can go back and forth, whatever you like. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can pick one or the other. And that's the supports on Frozen Mandible Spectre, Frozen Ant, whatever, Cocaine Ants, as Gazzy calls them. Skeletal Brute, really only here for Shattering Roar, honestly, the command skill that I use every once in a while. It's a war cry. It causes frozen effects on you and on enemies to explode. I don't use that often because I don't have any mechanism of inflicting freeze, but Intimidate. Intimidate nearby enemies, cause them to take additional damage. That's important. So you wait until the brute is up close and personal with the enemy, you trigger the war cry, and then those enemies start taking increased attack damage. No problem. Bidding, this just lets me do that. It's a cooldown based war cry. I get to do it more often with bidding. Magnified area, increases the area that war cry occurs over. And then Meat Shield and Last Gasp, same thing that I've got up on the Skeletal Warriors. Just keep them alive because these are, number one, I like having them around for the war cry, and number two, they're kind of like my second tier or even third tier sacrifice to Pain Offering, which comes up next. Pain Offering, it sacrifices one of your minions, and it grants other minions around it 31% increased attack and cast speed and 66% increased damage, which is all like crazy. Like, that's really big. I don't do it for every pack of monsters, but I do it when I come across a tough pack or, of course, a boss. What do I have it linked with? Dance Macabre, which, yeah, apparently that's how you pronounced what my high school self probably would have pronounced as macabre or macabre, marcabre. It's, yeah, macabre. Supported offering skills have 30% increased buff effect, so that further improves the attack damage and attack and cast speed. And then supported offering skills target an additional skeletal minion. So here's the problem. Additional skeletal minion, you need to have an additional skeletal minion nearby for this to trigger. Support effects are only applied if an additional skeletal minion is targeted. Supported offering skills deal 30% more damage. That doesn't matter. We're not dealing direct damage with the support. So you need to be able to sacrifice that second minion to get the effect, but you're always going to have a couple of skeletal warriors around. If you don't, you have other problems on your hands. Put it that way. If your minion army is dying, you probably need to back off and reset for a second. Also, Meat Shield, because the offering does count as a minion. Ooh, I should be swapping that out. That's still Meat Shield 1. What am I doing with myself? You can watch me make improvements right here in real time. Meat Shield 2. We don't care about how much damage it deals. We just want it to stay alive longer. So that's better. Sacrificial Offering. This is one that is really easy to take as the Lich. It is increased buff effect for the offering in return for sacrificing 15% of your life on use. Well, guess what? Since this is not a cost that you have to pay to get the effect, sacrificing is just another, it's like a side effect of the skill rather than a cost. A cost is a necessary thing. So with the Lich's life can't change. If you attempt to pay a life cost as the Lich, you will simply not be able to do that thing that costs life. Your life can't change. You can't pay the cost. This is different. This isn't a cost. This just says these two things happen. You get the buff effect and you sacrifice the life, but the two aren't related to each other. It's not tied causally to it like a cost would be. And since our life can't change, we completely negate the downside of sacrificing life. We just get the buff effect. Again, the more damage doesn't matter. Our offering is not dealing damage directly. Prolonged Duration. This is another one that I should upgrade. This has clearly been just hanging out since I first socketed it, from Prolonged Duration 1 to 2. Oops, I should have taken Duration out. Pain Offering, Prolonged Duration. Can I not do? Maybe that's why I didn't have it. Maybe there's some drawback to Prolonged Duration 2. Nope, no drawback. It's just the game's suggestion box being silly. So that's what we've got on Offering. Unearth, it deals a little bit of physical damage. We're not really dealing damage with this so much. We're hitting the enemies in order to take advantage of this right here. 30% increased damage for my minions if I have hit recently. So using Unearth to do that. Culling Strike, so if I hit something that's below a certain percent threshold of their life, they just die. Maim. Maim is a debuffing effect that slows enemy movement. It also reduces their evasion, but that doesn't matter for us because there's the recent change to minions that they can no longer... minions can't miss, so enemy evasion rating does not matter. Minions will always hit. But the slowing debuff, that part's still worse for us, so Maim is good. Sacrificial Lamb, they will be yet another layer of things that can be sacrificed to the pain offering so that my Spectres don't go. And then Withering Touch, just more minions that are inflicting Wither on hit, causing enemies to take more chaos damage. Skeletal Cleric, healing and reviving minions. Actually, they only revive fallen skeletons, so that's good for getting my warriors back to make sure pain offering goes, but I don't believe that Spectres count as skeletons for the reviving piece. I just got 1 or 2 in place to heal my Spectres in combat. So they can't die, because I've got a Brutus's Brain that I found myself. Didn't even buy this, just found one on the ground. And popped it in. They can't be damaged, and they can deal no damage. Well, the Skeletal Clerics aren't dealing damage to begin with, so this is a straight upside for them. Rapid casting to make their healing go faster. Minion Mastery. This is a blank spot where if I could have afforded it, I would have gotten one of the Uhtred's gems. I'll just show you what I mean by that real quick. It's one of the gems. Where's Uhtred? So with a certain number of blank supports, you get +3 to level of supported skills, which is ideally what I would like, but it's not really a big deal. I don't care that much. Really, I go back and forth between 1 and 2 Skeletal Clerics, by the way, depending on how much spirit I have. I guess theoretically I could get a 3rd right now, which is interesting, but my spirit fluctuates up and down with gear changes, so let's not worry about that at the moment. They're just to heal and revive. Despair, it's a curse, lowers enemy chaos resistance. Focus Curse for less activation delay. Magnified Area for area of effect. Heightened Curse for more chaos damage lowered. Hex Bloom, which spreads the hex to nearby enemies. If Hex Bloom could apply to a Blasphemed Aura Curse, then this would make it easier to take that Explosion Ascendancy node, but since Hex Bloom cannot interact with curses that have been turned into auras by blasphemy, it's no-go. So I just use it on my self-cast. And then Efficiency, less cost, because this was, even with my great mana regen, this is a pretty hefty amount of mana that this is costing. So Efficiency to reduce cost, and this means that I can pretty much cast it all the time. And then Skeletal Storm Mage, this is my shock bot. It is doing a lightning skill. I do muster because the shock that it deals is based on the amount of damage that it deals, so it'll also be important for me to get a high level, level 20 or level 21 Storm Mage. More damage equals better shocks. Feeding Frenzy, same exact reason, nothing complicated there. Overcharge, shocks are reflected back to you. I don't care. I don't actually know whether it reflects to me or reflects to the minion, or doesn't reflect at all because I'm not casting it. Regardless, I don't really care. I just want the bigger magnitude of shocks from these guys, and of course the shock support gem itself, more chance to shock. All this is a shock bot. I'm causing them to take enemies to take increased damage, and since I'm not using Skeletal Frost Mage with this amount of spirit that I've got, that is good on gems. Let's talk about gear. So what's fun about this gear is that there's really nothing super duper mandatory. It's if you're familiar with a minion build, you're familiar with what I'm doing here. You get a Scepter that, if it can, have it do increased attack speed, which I don't have, increased minion damage, which I don't have, or the other ones that I've gotten, what I've prioritized here was a lot of spirit, so I can have more minions, and +3 or more to level of minion skills. Ideally, if you wanted to pay more for this, I didn't pay a ton. You like I said, you'd get increased minion damage, and you'd get attack speed. The added fire damage is doing something here, of course. We're not using pure physical damage. Our Ascendancy benefits from this, but this is not a crazy Scepter. What I might have paid a divine or two for this. The whole cost of gear for the build everywhere, I don't think exceeds 10 div. And granted, that can be hard to calculate because I bought a lot of this at League Start, where prices are wonky, so it's hard to really estimate exactly how much it would be worth in current currency, but just to kind of ballpark it, I can't imagine that I have paid for everything more than 10 or 15 divine. Now, I recently came into some money by selling a nice amulet that I crafted. I just haven't used that money yet. I wanted to show you the version of this build where I haven't poured another 10 or 20 divine into it, but I'm gonna be. So what are we actually looking at other than the scepter? Now the helmet's interesting because when you first start out and for a long time thereafter, you're probably going to want to use Atziri's Disdain. It gives you that additional 10% of damage taken bypasses energy shield, which is 10% of damage deleted. And then 14, it's between 10 and 15% of maximum life as extra maximum energy shield. This is great, but here's the thing. Number one, you can only get a corruption of up to +1 minion skills on this unique helmet. On a rare helmet, you can get up to +2 minion skills, which is a nice DPS increase. The other important thing, though, is that you can actually do better for your effective hit pool than this helmet, which seemed crazy to me when I first used it. I was like, but I'm deleting 10% of damage and getting a bunch of energy shield. Well, turns out if you get a helmet with enough energy shield, like this one's got over 400, if you plug it into Path of Building, you actually see that this is superior for my effective health pool. Who knew? It's just adding enough energy shield is the equivalent of deleting a bunch of damage. So yeah, eventually you can upgrade from Atziri's Disdain to a rare helmet. And my game appears to be freezing right now, which is not super convenient. Oh, I've seen this bug before. I've seen this before. That's unfortunate, but I don't think my game crashed, so we'll keep going. Prism Guardian. This is one that this is another one of my expenditures, right? That I spend a little bit more than average on this. Unique shield. So you choose between this and a focus, basically. A focus gives you more energy shield and other energy shield related effects if you want them, and it can give you more, it can give you plus levels to minion gems. But Prism Guardian has a couple of benefits. Number one, it can block. Focuses cannot block. This is effectively saying 25% of incoming hits are deleted, so that's a big defensive bonus, even if you invest nothing else into your block chance. And number two, it gives you spirit per maximum life. So you're getting a lot of extra minions off of this instead of getting the gem levels that make the minions better. You're getting more quantity of minions. So it's a trade-off, right? I opted for Prism Guardian to get more spirit, and also this interacts with a choice that I've made in my boots. You may have noticed, I don't know if you did, I was not sprinting in that map. Now, sprinting in maps is dicey to begin with. I don't love it because you're constantly you're knocking off narrow walls and stuff. You are you're having to stop your sprint manually because the packs are pretty close together. So I was happy to find a solution that let me not need to sprint, and that is into my boots, I have socketed Soul Core, not of Takati, Amanamu's Gaze. That's interesting that it has a normal rune symbol there. But anyways, increase movement speed per spirit up to 40%. Right now, I think I'm only at like 31% spirit. But if you could get more life, you get more and more. The drawback is sprinting does not work when you do that. I don't see that as a drawback. I can have more than 30% movement speed and not need to sprint. I'm fine with that. And we had to take this because, or I had to take this because, Bones of Ullr, the boots, is a huge reservation efficiency for creating undead minions. Spectres count as undead minions, so you really want these boots badly. But their movement speed is terrible, which is why I took Amanamu's Gaze to overcome the bad movement speed on the boots. The other runes and soul cores, I'm taking Chaos Res, all Ellie Res, Chaos Res, nothing complicated there. What else is important? Belt is just, life. I would get more life on this to get more movement speed if I wanted to put more money into this. I still don't even have my third charm yet, which is crazy. And there's just resistances on that. Gloves, dexterity, resistance, bunch of energy shield. Body armor, spirit, resistance, bunch of energy shield. Ideally, I would have this, like the perfect body armor for me would be this, but instead of being on a normal energy shield base, let's see, do I still have one in my shop like this? Yeah, it would be on a sacramental robe to get that faster start of energy shield recharge. I would love to have that on my main body armor, but also have the spirit. The one in the shop didn't have spirit, so I'm selling it. And then just, resistances. So if I can get this on a different base while still having the spirit, and then really ideally the other suffix would be faster start of energy shield rate too, but those are like dozens of divines to get something that has all that good stuff and a bunch of energy shield. So whatever. Rings are resistances, attributes, life, energy shield, or not energy shield, just life. Nothing fancy on the rings. Amulet is decent. It's fine. I would obviously rather have +2 or +3 to level of minion skills, but it's got a bunch of life, a bunch of spirit, a bunch of cold resistance, so that's fine. And I don't know if there's really much else to talk about on the gear, at least the stuff that I'm wearing. Yeah, the runes here are just energy shield runes. So should we? Oh, we can. This is a good opportunity. I'll talk about the anointment, warlord leader, and then that'll lead to the passive tree, and we can take a look at the jewels that I've got on the passive tree. So warlord leader, allies in your presence deal 40% increased damage, which is big. 40% presence area of effect, also good. So passive tree, and this will kind of wrap things up. We can do the jewels, and then the rest of the passive tree. This one's got, yeah, my jewels are pretty bad, honestly. All this does for me is presence area of effect and minions deal increased damage. Like, all of my jewels could use a, a revamp. So that one, the one that's on my Ascendancy. And is that actually it? Do I have no other jewels on this build right now? Guess not. So let's talk passive tree. A lot of minion stuff. All straight up through here's minion stuff. Minions deal increased damage. If I have hit, minions are over here with reviving faster, area of effect, cooldown recovery rate, life, or no, in this case, elemental resist and max LA resist. I'm starting to poke into here for minions deal increased damage. I had this whole wheel taken back when I was doing more damage with command skills. So a previous iteration of this build was using the Vol Guard Spectres with the gas arrow snipers, and so the gas arrow would actually be the thing that would detonate and deal a bunch of damage. So I would get the benefit of this for the command skill increased damage. But without the snipers, no reason to take that. But I'm taking back some of this wheel to get the attack speed. Presence area of effect right here means that I don't have to be quite as close to my minions in order for them to get the effects, especially Necromantic Conduit, where they actually have to be in my presence. So this is actually kind of good as a defensive layer. I can be further back away from the combat the bigger my presence area of effect is. In fact, let's pin this right here. So if I hold Alt, I can pin this, close the passive tree, and hover over presence. And you can see my green presence wheel, that's pretty nice. That's pretty substantial. So as long as I am within that radius with my minions, they get the benefits of Necromantic Conduit and anything else. So let me close that. And then up here, we're getting reservation efficiency for minion skills, damage reduction and chaos res for minions, and increased area of effect and withered on hit. Withered on hit is great. It's adding to all the other sources of withered on hit, just constantly making sure that they're withered, taking increased chaos damage. And yeah, I think on the minion front, that's about it. And, oh, I'm sorry, over here we've got movement speed, attack and cast speed. Movement speed is an underrated offensive bonus for minions. It just helps them get in the enemy's face faster. And then obviously attack and cast speed is good. And then minions revive faster, just get you back into combat quicker. This over here, Profane Commander, is not strictly minion related, but kind of is, and that's why it's in the minion area of the tree. We're getting increased presence area of effect, hence the big green wheel, our big green circle, and 4% increased spirit, which just takes all of our other sources of spirit and multiplies it a little bit. And I think everything else on the tree is defense. Energy shield from helmet, energy shield, 5% of damage bypasses energy shield recharge rate, energy shield, ailment and stun threshold equal to maximum energy shield, more energy shield. Yeah, that's why I've got 8,000 energy shield, because I invest into it everywhere, all over the tree. Yeah, you can see that there is some leftovers you can see of secondary skill tree. You can see the kind of yellow-green lines over this. You can kind of ignore that. I'm not currently using it. That was from back when I had a secondary weapon set up for cursing, and I found that that was not super efficient. One thing I could do, okay, now that I'm thinking of it, I could associate my secondary weapon setup with my curses again, the way I used to. So all this stuff is curse related. Area of effect, magnitude, all that stuff. And then I could associate unearth with only my weapon set 1, so that if I curse and then quickly unearth again, I switch back to my main weapon set. That might be worth doing. That's probably a DPS boost. And then just, I think, to close out with future upgrades, like what would I do next? So if I could find a way to get rid of the belt for a Darkness Enthroned. Difficulty with Darkness Enthroned is it doesn't have any stats on it. So you'd have to clean up your resistances someplace else, which can get expensive. But the goal in doing so is, if we come over to the currency shop here, we would love to have Talisman of Ralakesh everywhere. Get 2 of these into your Darkness Enthroned, hopefully with upwards of 80, 90, 100% increased effect. You get a ton of increased reservation efficiency of minion skills. You put another one of these into your helmet itself, and the more reservation efficiency you get, the more minions you can stack, the more ridiculous your DPS gets. The other talisman that we might want to get is, I knew that this was the case early in the league, that there were several talismans that were clearly bugged and not dropping at all. Like you could go on the trade market in-game here, or you could go on the website trade market, and some of these talismans just didn't exist anywhere for sale, even though they did last league. So clearly they were bugged. GGG confirmed that. They've re-enabled them. So the Rabbit Talisman, 10% increased spirit. Really, really good, because instead of being reservation efficiency of spirit, you actually get more spirit. And the reason that's important, of course, is because of our boots with our Aminamu's Gaze. More spirit equals more movement speed, so that would be ideal. Trouble is, some of those are pretty expensive. The Rabbit Talisman, not so much. I could get that right now. Ralakesh, on the other hand, currently, if you go in Divine Orbs, going for 3.7 div, which I can now afford to get a few of these with my recent windfall. So that'll probably mean I'm adding a Spectre or 2, or maybe I add in some more other minions to increase the effect of muster, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's the future directions for the build. Now, I probably will not be releasing too much content. I've got a baby on the way coming pretty soon, so you might see this channel go a little quiet for a while, but if you wanted to upgrade this build further, that's where you go next with it. And yeah, in the meantime, I'd just say that I've enjoyed this. It's a different playstyle, playing with minions. It's kind of more hands-off in the sense that you are back from combat, but as you've seen, there's plenty of stuff to do if you want to be engaging. You know, there's curses to cast and unearth and pay an offering and everything else, so there's stuff to do. It's just a different play style. It's not quite as in your face. So I think the next build that I were to do, if I have time to do another build this league, would be something that is, you know, you really walk up to the enemy and blow something up in their face. Like, it feels a little bit more viscerally involved in the death of the enemy. But if you're looking for something that is strong and tanky and just good to get you through to the end game on not terribly much of a budget, I think that Spectre Lich or Minion Army Lich can be pretty good. So with that, thank you very much for tuning in. Leave any questions you've got down in the comments, and take it easy.